Hi, Leslie. It's so nice to be with you tonight.
Oh, wonderful. Nice to see you, Dr. Lydia.
We've got such a juicy topic. So, numbness, short of breath, racing heart. You think you've had your first panic attack. What are you going to do? So, tonight I've brought on Mentor Leslie with me. My name's Dr. Lydia, and we are the co founders of the original L60 Emotional Detox and Reset. And we help busy, everyday women feel better and heal their emotional bodies. So, tonight we had to dive in because 2020 has been a hell of a year. A lot of us are anxious, and I can see in my patient practice, we can see in our communities that women are experiencing panic attacks for the first time. So tonight I brought on Leslie. She's going to give us a little story time and tell us about how she worked through her panic attacks. Leslie?
Well, let me start, Dr. Lydia, by telling you about my experience. Now, it was quite a while ago, but the reason I think it's so important to talk about it is because, let's face it, this has been one incredibly anxious year. And over the top anxiousness can bring on panic attacks. And when I was in my late 20s, I experienced high level panic attacks for about a year. And I want to share with our viewers about how I got through it, what I experienced, how I got through it, and how I beat it, because I did beat it. I don't get panic attacks anymore. So let me tell you my story. I was late 20s, probably about 29, and I was coming through a divorce, young children. I had a career change. I had a move. I was highly stressed. I actually developed psoriasis, of all things, from the top of my head to my toes, like instantly. I was really in a stress zone. And all of a sudden, I started developing panic attacks. And I can remember my first panic attack like it was yesterday. And I don't know how many of our viewers have experienced a panic attack, but oh my God, I thought I was dying. It was so freaking scary. I was petrified. I thought I was having a heart attack, a stroke. I was lightheaded. My heart was pounding. My chest was tight. My arms and my hands were numb. I felt like I was passing out. And the worst part of it was I would get my panic attacks when I was driving. So I had to drive a lot for my job. I'd be on the road, I'd be on the highway, and all of a sudden these panic attacks would hit. And I had to drive. I had to get through it. And it was an incredibly difficult experience. And I think one of the key things that I learned when I went through it was, with panic attacks often comes a fair amount of shame and guilt, and you feel guilty that you're going through this. And I actually hid it for a very long time. I didn't really tell anybody. I pulled into fire halls twice. I checked myself into a hospital once, and actually an ambulance was called for me once when I was experiencing these incredibly frightening feelings that I was having, and thought I was going to die. And it I was so afraid to reach out to people that I knew, because I thought, is this all in my head? And when I would go for help, they'd kind of underplay it, like it wasn't that important. They wouldn't take my vitals. And I'm like, I'm dying. Why aren't you helping me? And it was a really difficult stage where I was embarrassed about it and I felt weak, but I could not get through it.
Yeah, what Leslie's speaking to is so important because panic attacks are real. The experience is extremely frightening. And we know that panic attacks are a physiological process. There is something happening with your body at that time. It's not that you're just making up things in your mind. We know that there's a little brain center, that fear center in the brain, the amygdala is triggered, and then you get a cascade of adrenaline. So in prehistoric times, that would have clicked in and you would have been running from the tiger or trying to save your life. But so many of us are chronically stressed. We're in that fight, flight, or freeze mode all the time. And so, I think with Leslie, well, I'll get back to why it happened while you're driving, or I'll ask you why it happened while you're driving, but her nervous system was primed and it flew into this panic attack. There was a release of adrenaline. So if we took Leslie's blood at that time, there would actually be elevated levels of adrenaline happening for a finite period of time. So Leslie, why do you think that this was happening while you were driving?
Well, it's a really good question, but I think it was because I was finally kind of alone. I was usually driving for work, so I was alone in my car, and it was kind of a quiet time
Yeah.
when I think you're alone. There's not a lot of noise, and I kind of really checked into my body. So if my
Mhm.
heart started racing, or I got a little numbness in my fingers, or I got a little lightheaded, you were super, super sensitive to it because I was alone in the car. And it just escalated. I mean, I started having panic attacks about having panic attacks in the car. I
Right.
would get where it was really anticipatory, and that was frightening. But I think it was, Lydia, because I was alone in the car.
I think I've seen that pattern before in women because women tend to be so busy and we're very occupied with, solving problems and caring for people that it's when we have those quiet moments, when we're waiting for the train, when we're driving in our car in the middle of the night, it tends to be that's when the panic surfaces. That's a really interesting observation. And I think you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about the shame associated with this. Now, this is a medical condition, and anytime we're experiencing something, we really need to move through it with a lot of self-compassion and self-love and try to move through that shame piece. But that can be easier said than done, particularly when it's downplayed by medical professionals. Like you just feel kind of ridiculous when it feels like you're going to die and everybody else is completely chill and calm around you. It just feels really hard. So how did you work through that shame so that you could really tackle these panic attacks head on?
Well, I mean, obviously in my late 20s, that was quite a long time ago. So I didn't have, Google and internet and everything at my fingertips to get all the answers to it. But one of my visits to a fire hall when I was in the height of my panic attack, I had a young fireman who actually walked me through sort of the medical version of what I was going through.
Mm,
And he told me, what you're feeling is real. Those are
mm,
real feelings. They are not in your head. You are experiencing those. But what you have to know is you are not going to die. And a
mm,
panic attack usually lasts about 10, 15 minutes.
mhm,
And he spent about an hour with me and walked it through. And I'm a believer, knowledge is everything. And
mhm,
with knowledge came confidence. And with
mhm,
confidence came my ability to reach out to people that were close to me and to let them in and to not feel guilty and not feel shameful, that it was a real thing I was going through, and I was going to beat it. And so I let people into my world, and that really helped me get rid of the shame and the guilt. And I explained to people close to me, what I was going through.
Oh, those are two real good takeaways there. I hope that people are really listening to this because there's the education piece and then there's the vulnerability piece. Just showing up and saying, listen, this is happening to me right now. Like I need a little bit of support. I need a little bit of help. And we know because we worked with a lot of women were not that great at being vulnerable
Yeah.
about things that we're, feeling uncomfortable about or things that we're fearful about. So really we can use panic attacks almost as a way of of stepping into courage, stepping into vulnerability, because oftentimes, our nervous system is so overwhelmed that the panic attack is kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back, where you're like, whoa, I need to take a step back here and really have a look at my life. And it sounds like you did that.
Oh, I did. I mean, that's exactly what happened. And I was in a super high stress time.
Yeah.
But how I got through it when I was armed with that knowledge and that confidence that that young guy gave me, it
Hmm.
really helped me to say, okay, Leslie, you're going to get through this and you're going to beat this mentally. He gave me a great tip at the time. He told me to always keep a paper bag in my car,
Hmm.
and I did. And anytime I would feel a panic attack coming on, I would pull over. I stopped pushing through it and trying to drive. I would pull over and I would just put the bag, over my nose and mouth and do like 10 really slow, deep breaths. And that would really calm me.
Hmm.
And if I was home or, driving and I could get out of the car, I found that exercise was really good for me. And I would do kind of repetitive exercise, like whole bunch of sit-ups, a whole bunch of push-ups, or I'd go for I always was a runner. So I'd go for a really high exertion run, and that would get me through it, because panic attacks, they only last about 10 or 15 minutes. That's about it.
Hmm.
So literally by the time I would go and get help for them, they were over. So the paper bag helped, the exercise helped. And then I just went full on. I'm very strong mentally, and I just got some really strong mental chatter going on. And I had a mantra. So anytime I would feel it coming on, I'd nip it right off the top immediately. And I'd talk to myself and I said, Leslie, you're not going to die. You're going to be okay. You're going to get through this. Relax, take some deep breaths. And I got where I could get myself through it. And I beat it. And within the year, I got through it, and my stress level came down too as I was working through my divorce. But I've never had another panic attack ever.
Yeah, that's really inspiring because you really took it head on. A lot of times when panic attacks are happening, we almost want to pretend like they're not happening and we kind of just try to distract ourselves but we really have to be like, okay, this is happening. I'm riding the wave. I'm going to have radical acceptance here. I'm going to deeply accept that the next 10 to 15 minutes are going to be kind of rough, but I'm going to get my tools in place. I'm going to pull my car over. I'm going to do what I need to do. And we really do need to do what we need to do because other people around us may or may not understand, but in that moment, you need to self-soothe, and there's nothing wrong with that. And you'll be surprised. A lot of people have had panic attacks before. Like if you saw somebody breathing into a paper bag, you would know exactly what was going on,
Oh,
and
I
you would
know
just want to
exactly.
support them, and you'd want them to do what they need to do to feel well.
Yeah. And that's why this is an important topic for me, even though my experience is an older experience, because this is a tough year, and
Yeah.
anxiety is high. There's a lot of worry, a lot of uncertainty. And if I can help even one person attack their first panic attack, I think it's so important.
Yes. Yeah. So this year, what's happening for people is we have two states to our nervous system. We have fight, flight, and freeze, which is our sympathetic nervous system. That's a primal instinct to protect ourselves. And then we have rest and digest, which is our parasympathetic nervous system. A lot of us are in fight or flight right now, and we need help transitioning our nervous system over to parasympathetic. So that's essentially what happened to Leslie when she concluded her divorce. She got through that rough patch. Her nervous system went back over to rest and digest, and the panic attacks were less of an issue. But there's ways that we can heal our nervous system. So I'd like to just discuss a few of those with you because I think it's really important. For starters, I think talking about the issue and being vulnerable and having a community, which is why we have our L60 group. Leslie, do you want to comment on just the value of community that you've seen with our L60 ladies?
Oh, well, I did my emotional struggles through my 20s, 30s, 40s, and did it alone. Was one of those strong on the outside, not so strong on the inside, pushing through. And I have learned, especially with L60, our community, the value of sharing stories, inspiring each other, lifting each other up, and being vulnerable. I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable very often. So I think it's so important.
Yeah, and now that we have this virtual landscape, now that we're doing things online, we can seek out groups that really gel with us, that really make sense to us. So I would urge you to do that, whether it's our free Facebook group, Emotional Health Matters, or you find another Instagram page that really inspires you and you can throw some comments up there. Just express what's going on for you. You will feel better. It will heal your nervous system. Humans are very communal, and we need to feel like we're being understood. A lot of us are quite alone with our feelings, and it's not great for your nervous system. It puts you in fight or flight.
Yeah.
I also want to encourage people to, get moving and get some fresh air, get some nature time. A lot of us are sitting at home right now, or we're just driving in the car to the grocery store, or maybe to our office and to work, and we're not getting enough time with nature, because nature can recalibrate your nervous system. It has impacts in terms of even your vision, because a lot of us right now, we're looking at screens. It just changes how your brain functions. Another thing I want women to think about is your blood sugar stable over the course of the day? A lot of women are feast or famine. We're eating large quantities, and then we're not eating all day, and then we're eating again, and our blood sugar is up and down. If you are experiencing anxiety or panic, you don't need blood sugar swings. That is not doing anything for you. So try to have good meals with the protein, fats, and carbs, and eat regularly. Leslie, do you notice any change in your mood if you're not eating regularly, or if you're kind of feast or famine, if you're doing anything like that?
Oh, I do, but I'm on top of my diet now. Took me a long time to get on top of what I need. And, I've got my food sensitivities and that going on. So I have to eat regularly. But
Mhm.
yes, if I have a day where I haven't eaten enough or I haven't had enough water, I mean, you just feel your blood sugar tank. And it can bring on some of those symptoms, the lightheadedness, the numbness, the brain fog, that absolutely.
Yes, I think I remember you mentioning that during that stressful period of time, you actually lost a bunch of weight because you were so stressed. And so maybe you weren't eating regularly at that time. I know you're working a very high-powered corporate job. You're probably surviving on coffee. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And divorce. I mean, when you go through divorce,
Yeah.
anybody who goes through it, I always say, you're going to lose 25 pounds, girl. You're going to lose 25 pounds. And I lost 25 pounds that I didn't really have in my late 20s. And you're not eating, you're kind of going on that adrenaline thing.
Yes.
So I think when you're in that place, you are definitely more susceptible to high levels of anxiety and panic attacks.
Yeah, that's such a great point. We need to be honest with ourselves. Are you running on adrenaline? Are you surviving on little bits of sleep, little bits of food, and just go, go, go? Coffee, that's a big sign too. If you're slamming coffee, some of us are also quite caffeine sensitive. We can't have 3, 4 coffees a day and not feel jittery and anxious. So we need to
Yeah.
pay attention to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm curious, anybody who's joining us, if
Yeah.
there's anybody out there who's experienced panic attacks and what have you done about it? I'm a huge believer in sharing wisdom. And if we get one little nugget of insight or inspiration from each other, that's a really great thing. So please, if you have had your first panic attack, and you have battled it and got through it somehow, please share and share in our comments how you did that. Let's face it, 2020 has been an unbelievable year of highs and lows and stress and worry and uncertainty and fear and probably every emotion in the book. And I give a hey to all of us for getting through it, both emotionally and physically. And I think we do all need to give ourselves like a huge pat on the back. But we like to interact, we like to hear from you. So please share your experiences with us.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with Leslie in terms of just giving yourself a pat on the back, giving yourself a little bit of a break. And we have our free Facebook group, Emotional Health Matters. So if you feel like you need some more emotional support in your life, or you love emotional health education, you just feel like it's an important part of your happiness, we truly believe that your emotional health is at the core of your well being. And so we love fostering that in women. So we have our free group, Emotional Health Matters. We have our membership group, L60, for that hands on support. But regardless, we hope that you've enjoyed this video. If you definitely give it a like, give it a subscribe, drop some comments. We're live every single Tuesday. Tonight's a Wednesday. Next week, we'll be back on a Tuesday. And we're covering different anxiety topics for the month of November. So thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.